Pokemon Detective Pikachu is directed by Rob Letterman and is inspired by the 2016 video game apparently. And in this movie, Harry Goodman, he is a police detective officer. He gets in a car crash and is presumed dead. So when Tim Goodman, played by Justice Smith, finds his Pokemon partner Pikachu, voiced by Ryan Reynolds, the two soon realize that the dad may not in fact be dead, and so the two of them go throughout Rhyme City trying to find the truth about their dad to find where he is. And along the way, they encounter a bunch of different Pokemon people and do Pokemon things with them, because I don't really know Pokemon that well. Yeah, it's a much surprise. I never did Pokemon as a kid. I don't really know a lot of the characters. I know a handful. I know Pikachu. I know when I see one, I'm like, that looks familiar. But for the most part, I don't really know Pokemon that well. So I was going into this movie with a very open mind. And even with that open mind of not being so attached to the movie due to its fan base, I would say that overall, I was surprisingly underwhelmed by this movie. Don't get me wrong, I did not hate this movie. I definitely liked a lot of things of it. But even with no expectations whatsoever, I did feel like that the movie could have been a lot more and it lacked in its potential. But things I did like, Ryan Reynolds as Pikachu, I really liked Ryan Reynolds. He was exactly what I thought he would be as a PG Pikachu. He was very funny, he was very quippy, and he even had that emotion at times. I thought Ryan Reynolds, you could tell behind the scenes he's really passionate about the character, he has a lot of charisma, and he had so much love for this character, and I would say that there is a good part of this movie that is carried on the back of Ryan Reynolds voicing Pikachu. Because for me, I was expecting a PG version of Deadpool in Pikachu, and that is exactly what I got. And while I think Ryan Reynolds for that role did do a perfect job, I do feel like there was a little wasted potential where I felt like Ryan Reynolds could have just been a little more risque, a little more crude, or even a little more adult. Because this is a PG movie, and I felt like Ryan Reynolds and the movie overall shined when it did go that extra step, getting into a little more of an adult territory. But I still really like Ryan Reynolds in that role, and I also like Justice Smith, surprisingly. If you remember from my Jurassic World Fallen Kingdom review from last year, I really did not like Justin Smith. I really thought he was annoying, and I really didn't like the actor, so I was not going in this movie with high hopes, and he surprisingly fulfilled his role as an actor. For the most part of the movie, whenever he was acting, he did not bother me, he didn't irritate me, he didn't have bad acting. He did his job. I don't have anything to complain about with his acting, and even when the movie does have emotional scenes for him, I thought he even did a better job during those emotional scenes. Granted, I felt that the emotional scenes in this movie, while needed for the overall crux of the character of Tim and why we relate to him, I did feel like that those scenes specifically did feel ham-fisted into the movie, because we'd go from one scene to the next scene, and the next scene the characters are already sad and just talking and doing nothing, and you know, oh, this is the emotional scene. It didn't feel genuine, it didn't flow well into the movie, and while I liked it, I did feel like it could have been blended into the movie a little better. Because for the most part of Detective Pikachu, the real issue I have is that its narrative it's pretty messy. I mean, it has a hilarious and very interesting story. Ryan Reynolds voices Pikachu. A kid's dad goes missing, and so the kid has to team up with a talking Pikachu that only he can hear. They go through a whole city filled with a bunch of different Pokemon, and they encounter all these different Pokemon, trying to find out the mystery of his dad. We've seen detective mystery movies before. I feel like Detective Pikachu could have been a step up above those detective movies that we've seen before, given its property. But sadly, I felt like the plot was very generic, muddled, and not really surprising. There's so many questions I have with this movie of how characters just go from this place to this place. Tim and Pikachu as detectives, they're not really that good detectives, because a lot of discoveries that they have in this movie are just because they stumble upon a certain character or a certain place. And everything that they do discover has to be handed to them on a silver platter. Granted, a lot of the plot, a lot of the twists in the movie that we find out during the movie are given to us through narration or very lazy screenwriting, where characters literally tell us what is happening, and I felt that was very lazy and sloppy. And while I realize the movie is sloppy and messy in its plotting, when it gets to its third act with a villain who has a very strange plot that I'm not really sure makes so much sense, and a bunch of random nonsense, really insane shit's happening in the third act. I liked it. I don't really think it made that much sense, but I would be lying if I didn't say that I was entertained by the random nonsense of Pokemon action that was happening during the third act. And one of the other characters too, Catherine Newton, she plays Lucy. She's an intern at this news channel CNN. She is an intern and she teams up with Tim, and she's so excited to be on this detective case, so she acts like a real detective, and by doing that, she came off as very forced and very bubbly and wanting to sit at different booths because no one can see the two of them handing folders over to each other, and then just messes up, and it's just, She needs to stop. The movie didn't even really need her. She helps for probably 2 things in the movie, and she even gets thrown away during the climax of the movie. She did not need to be in the movie. Granted, a lot of things didn't even need to be in the movie. There's a random action scene that happens for only one minor thing to happen to one of the characters when I felt like anything could have happened to that character. So it was just an excuse to have an action scene in this movie that really had no real purpose. And the ending of the movie, the writers did not know how to resolve the issue that the movie had in its climax, so literally they just fix it in a snap of a finger. It was really lazy. But I do feel like with Ryan Reynolds, the Pokemon, and even the real target age demographic, I feel like that the movie really would have benefited if it went for a PG-13 rating. If the movie went a little more mature, was still there for the kids, but had a lot of humor and references that adults could get, I think that the movie really could have benefited and made it stand out from just your generic kids movie or just a generic kids detective movie. I did like a lot of the visuals. The movie shot in film, and I thought that it gave the movie very rich feeling, especially for this fictitious city of Mute City. It did make a lot of the animated characters feel alive. I really like the designs for a lot of the characters, except for some characters. There are some Pokemon characters where they come on screen, I just look at them and I think, you're not designed well. But overall, I did not hate Detective Pikachu. I will say that I was a bit underwhelmed by it, given its potential. I feel like if I was a real Pokemon fan, I would have loved this movie, but sadly, since I'm not, I see its flaws with its narrative, its importance, what the movie has, and what the movie could have done. I did really like Ryan Reynolds and surprisingly Justice Smith visually. I really like the movie, and when the movie just goes batshit crazy in its third act, it's dumb, but I just couldn't help myself but enjoy it. Not all the acting or characters in this movie are really worthwhile, but the movie is for Pokemon. I thought that the movie did do a great job setting up this world for the general audience and introducing us to a lot of Pokemon. I myself, as a non-Pokemon fan, thought the movie was decent. Someone who's a big Pokemon fan, I feel like would absolutely love this movie, and so I can say that Pokemon Detective Pikachu is a fine movie. Pika Pika! That's my Pikachu impression, and that's Pokemon Detective Pikachu. What do you guys think? Have you seen the movie? Have you not seen the movie? Whatever you think, and put the comments below, and maybe I'll read it, maybe I won't. Thank you as always for watching, and if you haven't, you can click my last video right over here, and you can click my upcoming video right over here. Thank you as always for watching, and hope to see you next time.